What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Saturday, December 26th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, so we're still using the stats from last season because we're waiting for all teams to play at least one game. So we're still waiting on the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder to play their first game. So hopefully that happens tonight. But you got to keep an eye on that Houston game because that game could possibly be postponed once again. So I'm going to avoid giving players from that game just because we're not certain that it's going to play here tonight. Keep your eye on that news. If it does play, I think James Harden and Damian Lillard are smash plays from that game. So keep your eye on it. I'm going to lock in James Harden if that game plays. His usage rate is going to be through the roof with those other players out. But let's move on to some games that we know are going to play here tonight. I like Markelle Fultz from the Orlando Magic playing the Washington Wizards, who have the third worst defense overall, and they give up the fifth most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Markelle Fultz averaged 25.9 fantasy points per game last season in an average of 28 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 29 fantasy points in 28 minutes with a 29% usage rate in his first game of the season, and he's projected at 28.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $5,900 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game. So great matchup and a high-scoring game. So I like Markelle Fultz here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like DeMar DeRozan from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Toronto Raptors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. DeMar DeRozan averaged 38.7 fantasy points per game on the season in an average of 34 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He scored 57 fantasy points in 34 minutes with a 25% usage rate in his first game of this season, and he's projected at 39.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $8,300 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225 points scored in this game. So I like DeMar DeRozan here versus the Toronto Raptors. The other shooting guard that I like is Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns playing the Sacramento Kings, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the fifth most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Devin Booker averaged 40.6 fantasy points per game on the season in an average of 36 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 31 fantasy points in 34 minutes with a 33% usage rate in his first game of the season, and he's projected at 41.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $7,900 FanDuel salary and $1,900 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game. So I like Devin Booker here versus the Sacramento Kings. And just a note here, Devin Booker scored 50, 54, and 50 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Sacramento Kings. Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the position optimizer where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new player trends tool where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Tobias Harris from the Philadelphia 76ers playing the New York Knicks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing small forwards. Tobias Harris averaged 35 fantasy points per game on the season in an average of 34 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. Now, he only scored 21 fantasy points in 31 minutes with a 22% usage rate in his first game of the season, but he's projected at 32.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $6,600 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 217 points scored in this game, so I like Tobias Harris here versus the New York Knicks. Okay, and one of my favorite plays on the slate, I like Josh Jackson from the Detroit Pistons playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Josh Jackson scored 30 fantasy points in 28 minutes with a 25% usage rate in his first game of the season. He's projected at 25 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.7 times value. He's only $4,400 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 214.5 points scored in this game. Fantastic matchup, low salary, playing a bunch of minutes, productive season so far, although it's only been one game. That stat line is encouraging, so I like Josh Jackson here versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Pascal Siakam averaged 40 fantasy points per game on the season in an average of 35 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 32 fantasy points in 38 minutes with a 24% usage rate in his first game of the season, and he's projected at 38.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $7,800 FanDuel salary and 400 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225 points scored in this game, so I like Pascal Siakam here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, let's take a look at the center position. I like Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the second worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 39.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 34 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 44 fantasy points in 28 minutes with a 22% usage rate in his first game of the season, and he's projected at 39.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $7,800 FanDuel salary and 400 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.